I never thought I would be the kind of person to share something like this, but I cannot keep it to myself anymore. For the last 3 weeks, I have been waking up every morning with this tightness in my chest, like there is a weight pressing down on me. I go through my day pretending everything is fine, but the truth is, my world has completely shattered. The life I thought I had, the relationship I thought I was building, was a lie. Because my partner cheated on me. But that is not even the worst part. He cheated on me with my boss. I want to start from the beginning, not just for you, but for me too. Maybe if I lay it all out, piece by piece, it will finally make sense. Or maybe it never will. My name is Sarah, and I am 32 years old. I have been with my partner, Ian, for 5 years. We met through mutual friends at a dinner party, the kind of night where the music is too loud, the lights are too dim, and you find yourself having half-shouted conversations just to be heard. But with Ian, it was different. I remember leaning in to hear him better, not because the room was noisy, but because I wanted to be closer to him. He was charming in that easy, confident way. Not too pushy, not too distant. Just enough attention to make you feel special without overwhelming you. Looking back, I wonder if that was the first red flag, the way he knew exactly what to say, exactly how to move through a conversation like he had rehearsed it 100 times. We started dating a week later. It was a whirlwind romance, flowers at my desk, spontaneous weekend getaways, long nights talking about our dreams and plans for the future. He told me he wanted to build something solid with me, that I was the one. By the time we hit our 3rd anniversary, we were living together in a cozy apartment in the city. It was not perfect. Ian worked long hours in sales, and I had just landed a job at a marketing firm, but it felt like we were building something real. And then, about a year ago, I got a promotion. It was a huge deal for me. I went from a junior position to a team lead under the direct supervision of our department head, Naila. She was the kind of woman who commanded a room, sharp, ambitious, and effortlessly cool. She was only a few years older than me, but it felt like she was miles ahead in every way. She drove a sleek car, wore designer clothes, and seemed to have this unshakable confidence. I admired her. I wanted to be like her. Ian even teased me about it sometimes, calling her my work crush because of how often I mentioned her. It was a harmless joke, or at least, I thought it was. The first time I noticed something off was about 6 months ago. Naila started texting me outside of work hours, nothing inappropriate, just small things about projects or casual questions. But then, those texts would sometimes happen late at night. I remember one evening, Ian glanced at my phone and said, "Your boss really likes keeping tabs on you, huh?" He laughed when he said it. I laughed too. But something about the way he looked at the screen stayed with me. Then, there were the company events. Ian came with me to a few, the holiday party, a charity gala, and a team dinner. Every time, Naila was friendly, maybe even a little too friendly. She would compliment Ian's suit, ask him about his work, and touch his arm when she laughed at his jokes. It was subtle, but it was there. I told myself I was imagining things. She was just being polite. She was my boss. After all, why would she cross a line like that? But the real turning point came about 2 months ago. Ian had a business trip out of town for a weekend. I remember feeling a little off about it, not because I suspected him of anything, but because he seemed almost too eager to go. Usually, he would complain about having to travel, but this time, he packed his bag with a kind of excitement I had not seen before. While he was away, I decided to stay late at the office to catch up on work. Around 9 p.m., I went to grab coffee from the break room when I saw Naila's office light still on. I peeked in and joked, "Burning the midnight oil?" She looked startled, too startled for someone just working late. Her hair was slightly disheveled, her lipstick was smudged, and her blouse was buttoned unevenly. I remember feeling a strange chill in my chest. I did not want to jump to conclusions, so I smiled, grabbed my coffee, and went back to my desk. But that night, as I lay in bed alone, I could not stop thinking about it. Something was wrong, and I was about to find out just how deep the betrayal went. The next few weeks after that night felt like I was walking on a tightrope, balancing between suspicion and denial. Every time Ian smiled at me, every time Naila praised my work, I wondered if I was just being paranoid. I told myself that there was no way, absolutely no way, that the two people I trusted most could be hiding something like this from me. But once the doubt crept in, it refused to leave. I started noticing things I had ignored before. Ian's phone, once left casually on the coffee table or nightstand, was suddenly always face down. He would take calls in the other room, his voice hushed, and when I would ask who it was, he would just say work stuff and change the subject. Nayla's behavior at the office shifted too. She was still professional, but there was a subtle distance between us now. She would avoid too much eye contact, her conversations with me felt more clipped, and I caught her more than once quickly locking her phone screen when I walked past her desk. Then there was the weekend that broke everything wide open. Ian told me he was going to help a friend move. It felt odd, he was not the type to volunteer for something like that, especially on a Sunday when he usually spent the whole day watching football. But I played along, smiling and saying, "That is sweet of you." As soon as he left, a part of me just snapped. I cannot explain it, but it was like all the little moments, the strange looks, the quiet phone calls, they all stacked up inside me until I could not ignore them anymore. I did something I never thought I would do. I tracked his phone. It was not hard, he had once shared his location with me months ago when we were planning a weekend trip and had just never turned it off. I opened the app and stared at the little dot moving across the map. He was not at his friend's place. He was at a hotel. I remember sitting there, the air completely leaving my lungs. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might actually faint. At first, I tried to convince myself that there had to be a reason, maybe he was meeting a client, maybe there was some work event, but I knew. Deep down, I knew. I grabbed my keys and drove there. The whole way, my hands were shaking on the steering wheel. My mind kept flashing between images of Ian smiling at me over breakfast that morning, of Nayla's smudged lipstick that night at the office, of the way they both acted like nothing was wrong. When I got to the hotel, I sat in the car for a minute, just staring at the entrance. I thought about turning around. I thought about pretending I never saw his location. But then I saw them. Ian and Nayla walking out of the hotel lobby together. Her hair was loose, her blouse half tucked into her skirt, and Ian was laughing at something she said. I cannot describe what I felt at that moment, it was not just pain, it was a kind of rage and heartbreak that swallowed me whole. I stepped out of the car, and before I could stop myself, I called out his name. His head whipped around, his face going pale the second he saw me. Nayla froze beside him, her eyes wide, lips slightly parted like she was searching for something to say. But I did not give her the chance. I looked straight at Ian and asked, "Are you seriously cheating on me with my boss?" There was a long silence, the kind that stretches out so far it feels like time itself has stopped. And then Ian muttered, "Sarah, it is not what it looks like." That was the moment something in me broke. I wish I could tell you I handled it with grace. I wish I could say I kept my composure, turned on my heel, and left with my head held high. But I did not. The moment those words, "it is not what it looks like," left Ian's mouth, something inside me snapped. "Then what is it?" I demanded, my voice louder than I expected. "Because it looks like you just walked out of a hotel with my boss." A few people passing by glanced in our direction, sensing the tension. Nayla shifted uncomfortably, her hand brushing her hair back, but she did not say a word. It was Ian who spoke again, his voice low, like he was trying to contain the situation. "Sarah, let's talk about this somewhere private." "No," I cut him off. "We are doing this right here. Right now." My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I felt sick, physically sick, but I refused to break down. I turned to Nayla. "How long?" I asked. She blinked, surprised. "Sarah, How long have you been sleeping with him?" I repeated, my voice sharper now. Ian stepped between us. "Sarah, stop. This is not the place." But I was not going to stop. "Not now. Not after everything. Is this why you have been so distant at work?" I said to Nayla, my voice shaking. "Is this why you act like I am a burden every time I ask for your help?" Nayla's lips parted, but still nothing. Not a single word. And then Ian did something I will never forget. He reached out to touch my arm, gently, like he was trying to calm me down, but I flinched away from him so hard it felt like my body was moving on its own. "Do not touch me," I whispered. There was a beat of silence. Then I asked again, "How long?" Finally, Naila spoke. "It has been a few months," she said softly. "A few months." I felt like the air had been punched out of my lungs. My knees wobbled, and for a moment, I thought I might collapse right there on the pavement. Ian's mouth fell open like he could not believe she had just admitted it. "Naila," he started, but she cut him off this time. "I am sorry, Sarah," she said, her voice so calm, too calm. I stared at her, searching her face for any trace of guilt, of shame, but there was none. She looked composed, unbothered. And that hurt more than I thought it would. Ian, on the other hand, was unraveling. "Sarah, listen, it did not mean anything. It was a mistake." "A mistake?" I laughed, this bitter, broken sound that did not even feel like it belonged to me. "A mistake that lasted months." He ran a hand through his hair, looking more frustrated than sorry. "I was going through a lot, work has been stressful, and Naila was just convenient. I finished for him." He froze. And that was it, that was the moment I realized he was not sorry. Not really. He was sorry he got caught. Sorry that his perfect little secret had just been dragged into the daylight. I did not cry. Not there, not in front of them. Instead, I took a deep breath and said, "You deserve each other." Then I turned and walked away. I heard Ian calling my name behind me, but I kept going straight to my car, straight home, straight into the quiet of my apartment where his toothbrush was still next to mine and his shoes were still by the door. And that was when I broke down. I do not know how long I sat there on the floor of our apartment, surrounded by pieces of the life I thought I had. His jacket was still hanging on the back of the chair. His favorite mug was by the sink. There was a half-finished crossword puzzle on the coffee table with his handwriting all over it. It was like the ghost of him was everywhere, even though he was gone. I cried. I cried so hard my whole body shook, the kind of crying where you cannot even catch your breath. But after a while, the sobs faded into silence, and I just sat there, staring at nothing. That was the moment I realized something. I was mourning more than just Ian's betrayal. I was mourning the version of myself who trusted him. The woman who believed that love, once given, was something safe. I grieved for the person I used to be, the one who thought her relationship was solid, her career was on track, and her life was moving forward. Because now, everything felt like it had been burned to the ground. But the worst part, the part that kept replaying in my head over and over, was Naila. She was not just my boss. She was someone I had looked up to. I wanted to be like her, strong, confident, successful. I admired her work ethic, her leadership, her seemingly effortless control over every aspect of her life. And she had taken everything from me. The next morning, Ian tried to call me. I did not pick up. He texted long paragraphs about how sorry he was, how it was a mistake, how he loved me and did not want to lose me. I read the first few words, then deleted the messages without responding. By the time I showed up at work that Monday, I was running on 2 hours of sleep and a simmering rage I could barely contain. I told myself I would be professional, that I would not give Naila the satisfaction of knowing just how deeply she had broken me. But the second I saw her in the office, sitting at her desk like nothing had happened, like she had not just torn my relationship apart, I felt my hands curl into fists. I went straight to her office. She looked up when I walked in, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of something in her eyes, guilt, maybe, or fear. But then her expression smoothed out, and she said, "Sarah, now is not the time." I closed the door behind me. "Oh, I think now is exactly the time." Her jaw tightened. "I understand you are upset." Upset? I let out a bitter laugh. "You slept with my boyfriend. 4 months. And you think I am just upset?" She exhaled slowly, like I was being unreasonable. "This is not a conversation we should be having at work." I stepped closer to her desk. "You do not get to decide when we have this conversation. You made it my business the second you decided to sleep with Ian behind my back." For a long moment, neither of us said anything. Then Naila's voice dropped lower, more calculated. "Sarah, I suggest you calm down before you do something you regret." I stared at her, really stared at her, and for the first time, I did not see the strong, confident woman I once admired. I saw a coward. Someone who could lie to my face, betray me, and still have the audacity to act like I was the one overreacting. I swallowed the lump in my throat and said, I am not the one who should have regrets. And then I left her office. But that was not the end of it. Because later that day, I went straight to HR. I told them everything. Not just about the affair, but about how uncomfortable I had been for months, how Nayla's behavior had changed, how it had created a toxic work environment. I told them I felt unsafe working directly under someone who had so blatantly crossed professional boundaries. And you know what? They took it seriously. Nayla was put under investigation. I wish I could tell you she was fired immediately, but things like this are never that simple. The process dragged on for weeks, weeks of her avoiding me in the office, of whispered conversations behind closed doors, of Ian still texting me, begging for a second chance. But I stayed strong. I ignored Ian. I kept my head high at work. And when Nayla was finally demoted and transferred to another department, I felt something I had not felt in a long time. Relief. It did not fix everything. It did not undo the betrayal. But it was a start. It has been a few months since everything happened. Some days, it feels like I have moved on, like the worst of it is behind me. Other days, I catch myself staring at the empty side of the bed or reaching for my phone to text Ian about something stupid before remembering there is no us anymore. Healing is not linear, I am learning that the hard way. Ian kept trying to reach out at first. The texts went from desperate apologies to angry accusations, like I was the villain for refusing to forgive him. He said I was throwing away everything we built as if he had not already set fire to it the moment he decided my boss was worth more than our relationship. The last message he sent me was a simple, I hope you are happy now. I did not respond. Because happiness feels complicated these days. I quit my job not long after Nayla's demotion. Staying there felt like trying to live in the ruins of a burned-down house. The walls might still be standing, but the foundation was gone. Every time I walked into that office, I felt like I could still hear the echo of their betrayal, feel the weight of everyone's stares. People knew. Of course, they knew. Office gossip spreads faster than wildfire, and by the time Nayla was transferred, the whole company had pieced together what happened. I could feel the pity in their eyes, the whispered "Did you hear about Sarah?" every time I walked by. So I left. It was not easy, starting over never is, but it was necessary. I found a new job at a smaller company. It is less glamorous, but the people are kind, and I finally feel like I can breathe again. No more walking on eggshells. No more pretending I am okay when I am falling apart inside. But the hardest part was facing myself. Because the truth is, it was never just about Ian cheating. It was about what it made me realize about myself. I had tied so much of my identity to him, to us, that when it all crumbled, I was not sure who I was without him. I used to think we were a team, building a life together. But somewhere along the way, I lost myself in the relationship. I stopped being Sarah, the ambitious, driven woman I once was, and became Sarah, Ian's girlfriend. And I did not even notice it until he was gone. There were signs, I realize now. The little ways I shrank myself to make him more comfortable. The times I bit my tongue when he made a joke at my expense. The way I kept making excuses for his distant behavior long before Nayla ever came into the picture. His betrayal shattered me, but it also forced me to see the cracks that had been there all along. I am not going to pretend I have found myself completely. I am still figuring out who I am without him. I am still waking up some mornings with an ache in my chest, wondering why the person I loved chose to destroy us like that. But I am learning. I am learning to set boundaries, with others and with myself. I am learning that love should never cost you your sense of self. And most importantly, I am learning that healing is not about waiting for someone to apologize, it is about choosing to move forward, even when the apology never comes. Ian and Nayla deserve each other. If they think what they built on the ruins of my trust will last, that is their delusion to live with. As for me, I am choosing myself this time. And that, I think, is the best revenge of all.